Hello and welcome, everyone. It is great to have you here. My name is Gretchen Meisner, and I am a spirit-led mediumship teacher and an inspired speaker. And I'm here today on Zoom to talk about prelinking, which is a mediumship term. And the title of my tutorial is Teachers Say Prelinking is a no-no, but Spirit says yes, yes. And what I mean by that is that many mediumship teachers and philosophies will teach us during certain stages of our development as mediums that prelinking is not a good idea, that it can be a detriment to our development and is not really the highest quality type of mediumship that Spirit would want for us. So I'm a spiritualist, and part of the purpose of my mediumship is, as for other mediums, is to prove that life continues on after death. And so many people who come for a mediumship reading are looking for evidence, but they're also looking to feel that spirit energy. And when a medium has a link to a spirit, a person who is in the spirit world, and it's strong, oftentimes normal people can even feel it. If they're sensitive, and a lot of times people have an emotional reaction to that just because the link is solid and it's strong. And I think that's why a lot of teachers will say, don't pre-link. And many times over the years when I've been training in different circles, a student would start to say, I had a guy here with me and he showed me this, and the teacher would be like, nope, stop, forget it, let that go, start a new link, start a fresh link, because we want to feel it as well as get the evidence, because it doesn't matter if the evidence is 1,000% or 100% accurate. If you can't feel it, it's really not going to be up to the standard for a lot of people. And it may not even be proving that life continues on, because it could be psychic, okay? We could just be reading our client's aura and telling them what they want to hear. So this is the philosophy behind why teachers say do not pre-link. I know I took my mom for a reading one time. It was very expensive, and with a medium I adore, and I know she's a very good medium. But when we got there, unfortunately, she basically had notes and notes and notes of things that she had pre-written. And so she basically just read from her notes through the whole reading. And I would say, it was a 90-minute reading. At the very end, we just said, she was hoping to hear from one of her friends. My mom was there. I brought her for a reading, and the medium linked in for a brief moment, and she said, oh, your friend's saying happy birthday. And that was great evidence. And we felt it, but it was very brief. And so as great of a reading as it was a little disappointing for that reason, okay? So I understand what the teachers are talking about, and I agree with them. And I think that it's important for mediums to build the quality of our mediumship, to kind of take it step by step and do it with integrity, to take our time and little by little build our skills so that we can get to a point where we can do pure mediumship, where we're not relying on any tools such as tarot cards or holding an item or a picture like psychometry, and where we can actually just make a link, a pure link for our client while they're sitting in front of us, bring that beautiful spirit through, get them identified by evidence, and then once the evidence starts flowing, and it's recognized, then the link, the spirit person can come in closer and start giving more and more. And so I think it's important, and I would agree with the teachers on that regard, that we do need to be able to develop that ability and that quality in our work, because we need that to fall back on in case we're not able to make a pre-link, or in case the spirits don't connect with us, okay? So over the course of my development, I really made a strong effort to learn to do mediumship that way, especially because when we do Medium's Day fairs at the Spiritualist Church, they don't allow us at my church, or the church I belonged to at the time, to use any tools, because they wanted it to be really, really, really valid for people, and to know that their loved ones were there for them. And so I feel that I can understand why that's important. So for us to trust our ability and our team. And so if we do trust, then we are able to build up our confidence. Some people like to pre-link because they know at least they'll have a little bit of information when they either meet with their client, or at a psychic day fair, or are doing a demonstration in front of a church or a live audience or online. And so building that trust is important. But I think once we've established our ability as mediums, and we've proven not only to the spirit world that we're trustworthy, to clients that we have ability, to our teachers that we have a strong ethical foundation to do that, I think it gets to a point where pre-linking becomes a wonderful tool, okay? And the reason I say this is because I realize that the spirits are connecting with me before I read for people. And it's not like I'm going after them. It's not like I'm sitting here saying, okay, who's around, who wants to come in, who's here, I basically am just giving the spirits, out of respect, an opportunity to connect with me if they need to before a reading takes place, okay? And I just, over the course of time, I have come to realize that many professional mediums who are famous and well-known actually do this. And when I looked back many years ago, I received a reading from a well-known medium. His name is John Edward, and many people know him. And I went to see him by myself one time, just because I used to do that every time he was in town. And one time before I went, I was out shopping that week, and I saw this beautiful emerald green top. I don't know if you can see this, but it's like a mermaid color. It's beautiful green. And I bought this because it caught my eye, and I just put it in my closet. And I ended up wearing it that day for no particular reason other than it was new. And so at a certain point in the demonstration, John Edward said, as his students know, when he's in the shower, he clears his chakras and he starts making his spirit contacts then before a show. Well, on this particular day, he said that his mom, who's in spirit, or his guide, showed him his mother's burial outfit, which was a green color. And so he saw it, and he started getting messages and information while he was in the shower from his guides. So he jumped out of the shower, wrote the notes down, and then finished and went to a show. And at a certain point in the show, he said, okay, so I'm looking for someone in the audience with green on. And he knew that the green color was how he was going to find the recipient. And I raised my hand as he started he knew he was in my direction, but there were about 3,000 people there. And I raised my hand, and I got a wonderful reading from him. And it ended up that he was telling me that I was going to be going into this work, doing healing. And I had just started a real estate business. I was disagreeing, but he was pretty adamant as he can be. So the fascinating thing about this is that he and I were the only two people in the whole room that had green on. And there were about 3,000 people. I walked around the room after looking because it just so surprised me. But when I think back, I realize now he was prelinking. He got the information ahead. He wasn't, whether or not he was asking the spirit for it, I don't know. But the fact that he said he got out of the shower to write it down meant something to him. And he used that, and it was very helpful tool. So as I look back, I feel validated by that. And I feel like if he's doing it, and I have a lot of admiration for him as a medium, that I think that it's acceptable. It's an acceptable practice for me to share. And I'm not saying it's the only way, and I wouldn't rely on it 100%, but it's a wonderful tool. And I feel as though if the spirits are coming in, then it's kind of rude of me, because if I have a party at my house, some people show up early. Some people, maybe it's a circle and they want to get the best seat, or they just want a little bit of time alone with me to talk about something important. And now I kind of look at it the same way as when if I know I'm going to be doing a reading for someone, then I become aware as I'm preparing to go to the location, or just going about my day. And I don't necessarily, link in with the spirit, but I give them the opportunity. And if they do show up, then I will make a record of what they have to say, and I will make a note of it. And oftentimes now that I'm teaching mediums, I share with them that the knowledge that I keep a journal with me when I'm meditating, next to my bed, when I wake up in the morning, when I'm sitting at my desk. I always have paper, and I encourage people to have paper with them while we're in circle, because if they are aware of something that's going on in their own body or around them or in their day, a thought comes in, or their mood, then it can be prelinking with the spirit contact that they're going to be bringing through. And so I really encourage people to make a note of it, because I think it conserves energy to a certain degree. Mediumship can be stressful. It can be exciting. And I think that the easier we can make it on ourselves, using the least amount of energy for ourselves and the spirits, I think makes a lot of sense. Because prelinking is when we are getting information before spirit contact, and then going back to it later with the intention of bringing that communicator in for a recipient. And so when we when we do this for ourselves, it can help release some of that anxiety, the stress, the tension around doing a reading, a demonstration. And it really can resonate with some mediums I found. And so a few ways that I realized that the spirits were working with me in this regard was that they wanted to be able, I'd be in the shower, or I would myself, or brushing my teeth, doing dishes, in my car, or I often, whenever I have time, try to meditate for a few minutes, or at least quiet my mind and get into the spirit mindset, the spiritual mindset, or the zone before I do a reading. And so this is a great opportunity to kind of just be aware of what's going on around me. And one time when I was away with some friends of mine, we were doing a demonstration that night, and we went to get our nails done. We were just killing some time, and I was waiting for my girlfriend, and I got this thought in my mind: go open that newspaper to a page and look for the first name you see, and that's going to be your first communicator during the event tonight. And so I did it, and I told my friend about it, and I kept the name in mind. And I really didn't know if I would dare to do that or have the confidence or if it would really work or not, but I did it. And I believe the name was John. And I think there was other information in the article, like it was about a fire. Someone had a fire in their home. And so I used that information that I felt I was guided to get by spirit, and it led me into my first communication, and it worked, and it was really cool. And I feel like sometimes the spirits put out these thoughts in our mind because they're pre-connecting with us, and they're trying to make our job easier, and they're trying to make their job easier because, as you know, it's kind of like them playing Pictionary sometimes. If we're very visual and clairvoyant, we see them give it, and it's not an exact science, okay? And so when we use these tools, it helps. And we may notice also, if we do psychic readings or if we do Reiki, you might notice that when your client's coming to you, you are tuning into them, and maybe you can feel their aches and pains, like maybe you get a headache. Or I've had people sitting in the parking lot outside who were anxious about coming in for their first reading, and I could feel that. And I, be waiting for them. The clock would be ticking, and I'd be like, okay, I wonder if they're going to come in or not. And, usually when those people come in for a first reading, they usually do come in. And it takes a little while for them to kind of relax. But it's nice to have that information as a medium ahead of time to know, what is this person feeling? What physical complaints do they have? And what do we need to work on? And because sometimes it's in the emotional body and they may not even be aware of it. They might be so used to it. And it might just be something they don't want to talk about. And so it's very useful with healing. It's also very useful with the psychic or mediumship clients, because if we know they're having anxiety, we can just maybe offer them a cup of tea or a water and just chit chat for a little while to kind of help put them at ease, let them know that, we're just a regular person, and that they're safe, and that we are there to help them. We're only there for them and to support them in whatever they need, and to just kind of go slow and let them get comfortable. Okay. And so let me see. So what else do I want to add to this? When we're actually going to do a demonstration, so there's two specific ways that I'm going to get into. And I know Kevin's here, and he's offered to show one of the ways that I do a prelink. So there's really two ways, basically, I would say. The first way is when we're at a demonstration and we're going to be in front of the audience, and we're either sitting and meditating because the church service is going on, or maybe another medium's working, or we haven't started yet. And usually at that time, if I'm doing a demonstration, the first or second spirit that maybe I'm going to link with will come in close to me. And I don't go reaching for that, but if I sense they're there, I feel like almost like they'll be like, okay, look over at that wall, and then I'll see a picture. So there just might be a design in the carpet, and I look at it and I can see maybe a reindeer, okay? And maybe I might get like two really strong pieces of evidence. And then when it's time to stand up and go to work, I have those two pieces of evidence, and they were given to me from spirit. And you can tell the difference between something coming from spirit and something in our own imagination. Or, I mean, I've sat in a church service and felt a medium before they were working, literally like reading me and getting information from me before they went to work. And I mean, that's fine if that's the way they work, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying reading the audience. I'm saying linking in with the spirit, or just tuning our awareness to the spirits before we work, in case there's some bit of information that they want to give us. Because when you stand up to demonstrate, it's like you're changing your altitude. You're, people, a lot of attention comes on to you. You're kind of looking at the audience, and there's a lot of stimuli coming in all at once. And so, typically a medium will start talking. And if you have one or two pieces of evidence, that's a good way to kind of just go make the transition from talking about yourself and how you work into your first contact. Because usually while you're working, oftentimes you'll start to feel drawn to someone, and you'll know, okay, this is who that information is for. Or you might just put it out to everyone, and then you can feel by the way people are responding whether it's for them or not. Okay? And that to me is just brilliant. It's wonderful. Now, I'm not going to stand up and say, all right, this guy was with me, he lived on the river, and talk about it in the past tense and give the whole reading like it already happened when I was sitting over there by myself. That doesn't feel good, because we want the recipient to feel that energy. So if we get a little tiny bit of information, bring it in, and then offer it to the recipient as they're talking, and as we hear their voice and recognizing, then the spirit will come in closer and relink with us. Okay, it's not up to us to relink with them. It's up to them at that. We're giving them that opportunity to come in and relink. And it takes a little bit of practice, and it's good to kind of practice it not in front of a public audience at first. But once you get the hang of it, and start doing it, maybe with friends rather than spiritual teachers, then I feel as though it's a wonderful, wonderful tool. And I think you'll agree with me if you try it, if you haven't already, okay? And so another technique that I personally have used, and I also, this is the technique I'm going to ask Kevin to use in a moment, and I'm going to kind of explain it first, how I do it. And, it didn't really dawn on me, but my very first, well, actually my second spiritual teacher, I went to a medium's day. I got a reading from her, and I sat down in the chair, and when I sat down, she had a little tiny piece of paper, and there were like 5 or 7 words on there. It was just one word things. And one of them, she wrote, it said UFO on there, okay? Now, my father was really into UFOs, and he would tell stories and about them, and he was just fascinated by it. And I actually saw a UFO one time when I was a teenager, but I never really told anybody about it because it didn't really make any kind of a big impression on me. It just felt very casual, which sounds weird, but I saw it. I experienced it. I was in the middle of making a sandwich, and I went back and I finished what I was doing, and it was done. It didn't interact with me at all, but I felt like it was there in like a UFO type ship. So I don't really talk about that, but it's real and it happens. So this woman had UFO written on there, and she knew the whole story. And what she did was she went down each word, and it was kind of like a reminder for her, kind of bullet points. So I knew she had already received these words from spirit, maybe in between me and her last client 5 minutes before. And that made such a strong impression on me that she knew that after I never told anybody, and I really didn't care. I ended up going to her and asked her to be my teacher, and I sat in her circle for 5 years. and it was a wonderful experience. And she's an amazing teacher, and she's in spirit now. And I know that only to use this technique. So what I've done with this technique, what I personally do myself, I will show you here that I have an example of at the last spirit fair I did, the last fair I was at. This was my last woman, and she had scheduled it, but it was at the end of the night, and I was finished, but I had like a 20-minute wait until she arrived. So I sat down with my notebook, and I just kind of got quiet. I'd been working all night, so I was already kind of in the spirit energy. And I just said, okay, if you have anything you want to give me ahead of time, I'm open to it. Right away, I heard John. I heard the three names up here that you see, Tom, John, and Jordan. Her name was Kelsey, which I wrote after when I met her. But this woman wasn't in the building. I didn't know her name, anything. Someone just came up and said, you have one more person coming. And then I got the names, and I just sat there, and I felt like, okay, pick a couple cards. So I have 2 decks of cards I use. One is called Talking to Heaven, and it has messages in here in the cards from, different messages that spirits like to give to their loved ones here. And then I have this other deck, which is Mary, Queen of the Angels. And it's a beautiful deck, and it shows a lot of pictures of relationships, like families. And so oftentimes I will pick one of these cards and one of these cards. So what I did was I picked one of each card. I picked Heaven Cares for Me, which was one from the Blessed Mother deck. And then I picked another one that said Painless Death and Don't Hold On to Guilt. So I knew that this was part of the message that this person was going to be receiving from their spirit, loved ones in spirit. I also then felt a mail, a motorcycle, tattoos, all this other information that you can see here. And so when the woman arrived, I did record the session. I recorded all of my readings on my phone voice record, and I recorded it. And she's going to be texting me for a copy of it. And when she does, if she gives me permission, I'll play. I will also share the recording and the notes of this. But I will tell you that I told her the names, and then I kind of skipped over the message, and I told her, a male, motorcycle, tattoos, and jail, the jail energy. So basically what ended up was she was looking to hear from her grandfather, Tom, and her friend, Jordan, who was like a sister to her. Okay. Now I thought Jordan was a man at first. So, because I got the mail and the motorcycle, but that ended up being a 4th person who was for her boyfriend who died on a motorcycle. He came in after our recording had stopped. She just said, oh, I have one more question. And he ended up coming through. But the tattoo was, she was getting a tattoo with her grandfather Tom's name on it that week, and she wanted to know in his handwriting. And so that was one thing. And then the jail energy, the ball and chain, was his sense of humor. Like he would kind of joke around about life. And so she understood that. And then Jordan ended up dying in a car accident. And the girl, Kelsey, when I told her that, she wants you to know she didn't suffer, that was very emotional for her. So everything tied in, and it was amazing to me. Like, I just can't believe how the spirits can get this information through. Sometimes it just makes me crazy when I think about it after, and I just get so wound up that my family doesn't want to be around me because that's all I can talk about. But I just am so amazed by them. And it's taken time for me to be able to get accuracy, but I did this before every single reading I did at that fair, and every single one the people were able to take. The only one I went to the bathroom in between, and I ended up not having notes for a woman. But, and I kept trying to link with her, and I couldn't link. I couldn't figure out, get any of her people. But then she told me, oh, you just read for my niece. And so I gave her the niece's recording after with her permission, because it was all the same people she wanted to hear from. And then I ended up giving her a psychic reading, was what, because that's really what she wanted. And so it made total sense that I didn't have anything in writing and that I couldn't make a connection for her. And so, don't get discouraged if you try it. And if there's nothing there, sometimes that happens because either maybe, you try to pre-link, or you give the spirits the opportunity, and sometimes the person doesn't show up. Or, like I've had people come and say, what's going to happen at court tomorrow? And I don't get anything. And then the court case ends up getting postponed. And so they don't meet. And so when there's not evidence there, don't get discouraged. Don't feel like, oh, this isn't a good technique. It's not supposed to work for me. Keep giving yourself opportunities. And it doesn't have to just be in readings. It can just be, random bits of evidence, or, if you're going to be meeting a friend later, see if you can get some information, opportunity, and go over their boundaries. I'm not saying don't ask for anything personal. I'm just saying this is something you keep to yourself. And then wait and see if your friend talks about it, during the conversation. And so this is a really great exercise, and I absolutely love it. And I hope that you'll give it a shot. So I'm going to give Kevin the opportunity now. Kevin, if you will unmute yourself, please. And how do you feel about trying this technique, Kevin?
Good. Actually, I think while I was looking at you, I saw some lady over your shoulder there. So
okay, wonderful. Okay, so okay, great. So what I would like to do is kind of walk you through the steps, have you get a few pre-linked details, and then in real time, maybe since we're the only two people here, obviously you'll have to be for me, and then just read it to me. What I usually do is I will read it to the recipient and tell them what I'm doing. And a lot of times they want to take pictures of it after, or them the paper after. And then while they're talking, just ask them, what do you understand about this? And most of the times what will happen is evidence for a couple different people will come in. And that's the greatest thing that can happen, because some mediums get stressed about that. And they're like, oh no, just step back. We only need one. But that's wonderful, because we know, like, these are the people that are coming through. This is what they recognize. And as the person is coming in, sometimes they overtalk each other, get more than one at a time, but it's all great. So Kevin, I would just encourage, it sounds like you've already got some, if you could just write it down, and that kind of gives the spirits validation that you heard it, that you're going to share it. And once you write it down, they might give it to you a different, because like in this one, the young lady understood Tom and Jordan, and then she goes, I know John. And then later on, when her other grandfather started giving his middle name, so then when I heard the John again, then I knew to go back. So and I would also encourage you, if you have a deck of cards with you, or I can pick a card, to maybe just pick one card, write it in your notes, look at the card. Sometimes, like, let's see, I've got this one card here. As you're working, I have this card here, which says, it was my time to go. Okay. And so this would be something to add in. So we know that this person needs reassurance that perhaps it was an untimely unexpected and they have things to look forward to, so we know that maybe is going to come in the reading. And then I picked this other one. This card is a feminine card, and this is a mom holding a baby. So a lot of times this could be a child that was lost, or a female because of the feminine, or it could be a mom coming for a daughter, or it could be a son, actually. Okay, but it says feminine. So it sounds like Kevin's ready. So when you're ready, Kevin, I will invite you to just share what you have to say, read it all to me, and then I can validate for you what I can understand. Okay?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, so while you were speaking, and much as you say, this often happens to me. All of a sudden I'll just notice, something like, it's always over the shoulder for me.
Yeah.
When I was first starting, I used to see things matrixed in tree limbs. I would see faces and stuff. But this was kind of over the shoulder, and it was a smaller woman. Dark curly hair.
Yeah.
My impression that I got, she was kind of talking in your ear while you were talking. And when you said about a teacher, the woman who taught you mediumship, all of a sudden I felt this really strong feeling that it had something to do with that. But she was dark, she was small, curly hair. I didn't get the impression that she was old, and so maybe either during your relationship, she was, I'd say in the kind of 40s to 50s to early 60s, but she had dark hair, and it was kind of a teacher / guide kind of relationship, one way or the other, because that came up. But she, unlike you, where you're usually kind of smartly dressed, she was more wearing kind of frumpy kind of clothes. Like you might say to her, no, you wouldn't say this to her, but you would think to yourself, that outfit doesn't do you any justice, because this seemed like this was not in her mind. Beautiful person, great spirit, great energy, but it was not in her mind that she should be like dressed, that type of thing. I also got a J sound associated with the name or somebody in that relationship. And the cards that I pulled were music and harmony, which to me always means a relationship that was a harmonious relationship, in that both people benefited from it. So even if she was a teacher to you, in some ways you were a teacher to her as well. Okay, and then the other one would be winter solstice, and this would kind of mean, this could mean, the first thing I saw was that she died in the winter, and then but the other thing that this always tells me is that there's a reflection quality of this. It's almost like in our darker periods we need to look within ourselves, and I don't know what that means, but that's what came. So that's kind of the evidence that I have.
Okay, that's wonderful. So what I do at this point is I ask the recipient to say, let me know what they understand about that. And that kind of helps me to sort out the information and understand a little bit from their perspective. Right. So I would say I feel like there was a couple different people connecting with you. The first one was my great-grandmother, who works with me from spirit. She's very tall. She's tiny. She had dark hair.
She talks in your ear.
Yes. Okay. And what else I understood was my dad would play music for me. The music was very important, and that's another way that I get information, from hearing music. And so I understand that. And then my teacher, I do understand, like, us teaching each other. I understand that. She did die in the winter, and the reflection was that she died right after her birthday in December. So it was her birthday, and then she died right before the winter solstice, okay, or right around there. And she was in her 60s, and she would wear sweatpants and sweatshirts when I would go to her circle, okay, at her home. But I mean, it's because she was more comfortable. She had a physical ailment in her body, and so I feel as though, so if I was getting this information for a person, I would feel like, okay, I've got 3 people here who are going to be coming through during this reading, okay? And so that's excellent. And so what I would say is, now I just wanted to ask you if you could just pick one of those people and just link and just get 1 or 2 more pieces of information, just so people that are watching this can feel that the benefit of that. Are you feeling any particular one as I'm talking?
Well, the grandmother is the one that's the most prominent. And I do feel also that there was some kind, in her mind, that there was both the teacher kind of relationship as well as the harmony. And so when I saw the harmony music, you took music from that, but I took harmonious relationship.
Okay.
So,
yeah.
So that it wasn't just like she was your grandma, but you interacted with her in a way that was, she got a lot out of.
Okay, that makes sense.
Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, yeah. I understand now what you're saying.
Yeah, and that she, and in some way that she was also. So how does teacher come into it for her? Was she a teacher, or did she teach her?
She was a medium. I found out from multiple,
Okay.
and we were very.
So that's how I feel the relationship kind of comes through, because a teacher, she's like, no, I'm the teacher.
Yeah.
And as she's talking in your ear, she's not just giving you clues, but she's also like informing your mediumship. Is kind of the message that I get from her. Because she does go back and say, no, teacher, I'm the teacher.
Yeah, she is now.
And so there are multiple people there. I also had I don't know what your dad looked like, but I also had a man who had a relationship. Well, what he showed me was always wearing like a jacket and a tie, very, very prominent with jacket and tie, like would always be in a jacket and tie. And maybe even having worn his hair kind of tidy, and maybe even like in the day they used to use gel on their hair, not 70s or 80s gel, but like 50s and 60s kind of gel.
Yeah, when I was a child, that's how he dressed for work.
Okay, that you remember that with the hair, like he was like sharp, but kind of 50s, 60s style sharp.
He always mentions his hair.
Yeah.
It's like his thing. It's like almost something to make me laugh.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, he was there as well as this lady over your shoulder. But there was this affinity that I did get when you mentioned your teacher, and I think that you probably brought her in too. But from the grandma standpoint, she considers herself your teacher when it comes to the mediumship work.
Yeah, she's with me a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, helping me. That's great. So that's a great example of using that technique. How did that feel? Do you use that yourself, or?
No, I have never used. My cards, I use them differently. Like sometimes I will, before somebody comes, I'll pull a card, but it will tell me something psychically about them. That once I now have that psychic connection, then more energy comes my way, and I go into mediumship. But the card's usually not related. But yeah, that was interesting to do that. Although what I have to figure out, because when I deal with cards, sometimes there's like a magic about which card I pick. And while you were talking, I picked a couple of cards. I'm like, these aren't the right cards. And then I got 2 that felt like the right cards. So.
Okay.
And that was these 2.
Okay. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah. And that, my teacher, she died in December, the teacher, and I was very close to her. So, and
she
everything.
Like? Was she a smaller stature than you?
Well, everyone's smaller than me, but she was about average height, I would say, the teacher. And when I knew her, she had short, straighter hair that was, she lightened, I think, was more lighter. I don't know what her natural color is, so,
Right.
but I could see my Nana, my great grandmother, when you were, I just could feel it. And I felt like I think that was a great example of how a couple people will show up in the
Yeah.
notes. And I think it's important for all of us to not expect it to all be for one person and to just be open to the fact that they're all there at once. And they just kind of, it's kind of like doing, like when we do a reading, in some ways, if we look at it as, this is kind of like doing a talk. It's like doing a talk where we have an introduction. So we're giving an overview of everything that's going to be coming in the reading. And we have our notes, our bullet points, and then we get to the message part, and then we have a conclusion where we kind of review it and just remind everybody of what's in first. And I find more and more nowadays, like the younger generations need less evidence because they already believe that it exists. They're more like into feeling the energy and just being in that connection, that spirit connection.
Yeah.
And so I think you did a fabulous job, and I really appreciate it. And thank you for doing that. So I'm just going to kind of end up and wrap it up now, and just by saying, thank you. Hopefully you'll find this technique works for you. And if it doesn't, that's fine. But give it a shot and see what you think. It's great for conserving energy and for just kind of easing into maybe the first part of a reading, a 1 hour reading. And I know people love it. For my example, in my experience, people really appreciate it, and they feel a connection to the medium when, especially if you have it written down before they even get there. Okay, so good luck with your pre-linking, and when the next time your mediumship teacher says no, no, no to pre-linking, you don't have to say it out loud, but in your mind, you can hear the spirit saying yes, yes, yes. Okay. So thank you very much. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Good. That was good. I liked it. I love the title. And can you still hear me?